Howdy Goons, this is Funny Playing's Retro Pocket Pixel. Funny Playing is a company that primarily makes Game Boy modding kits like backlight kits and shells. They also sell an FPGA GBC, which is like the Analog Pocket but cheaper and Game Boy Color only. It's a good product that probably slipped under your radar because it's GB and GBC only. The Retro Pocket Pixel is something different though, as it's a software emulation handheld that runs on Linux like many of the other devices I've talked about. What's more special is that it's a vertical 1:1 aspect ratio handheld, and despite the love for GBC, there aren't many 1:1 handhelds. You could count them on one hand: the RG Cube, the Cube XX, RGB30, RGB20SX, and the Retro Pocket Pixel. I guess you could count the RG Nano, but I think of that as more of a gimmick than a handheld. Only two of the aforementioned handhelds are 1:1 and vertical. The RG Nano isn't a handheld though, it's a suppository. So the RGB20SX and this, essentially. With shipping, the RGB20SX is around $80, and this is about just $57 with shipping, making the Retro Pocket Pixel the cheapest 1:1 vertical on the market. This matters because a lot of people who want these handhelds want just a Game Boy, or a Game Boy Color again. The Pocket Pixel is just that. But this isn't the first time this handheld came out. It's actually the second iteration of this handheld. The previous Pocket Pixel was $100, ran on Android without a touchscreen, and used an all-winner chipset, an older one. Now, I've talked about the Shoe 20 V32, and that uses the all-winner A133P, and it's my favorite budget handheld because of what it offers for the price. The original Retro Pocket Pixel wasn't that. It's double the price. You probably know this because all my goons are smart cookies, but Android on a 1:1 screen is kind of overkill. You just don't need that kind of juice under the hood of what is only going to play pixel-based games. So that one definitely flew under your radar because it flew under mine and everyone else's. But the version 2 is here, and it's worse, but like on purpose, because it makes more sense for what it's trying to do, but also it's just bad in some ways, like not intentionally. Stick around after the features for what happened when I was ordering this thing. We'll start with power and what it can play like usual. This is an RK3326 chip. And that's an old one, but it makes sense here. It'll play PS1 and every pixel-based game that came before it. Since it has a 1:1 screen, we have Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Pico 8 as best for the screen. Game Boy and GBC were 10:9, which is almost 1:1, so there's only minimal letterboxing. Pico 8 is true 1:1 though, and it's great on here because the handheld has Wi-Fi. Pico 8, if you've never heard of it, is a fantasy console that serves as imaginary limitations. It's a funsy sort of thing for people to develop games on them with weaker hardware. So, despite being very new, it has very old vibes. The games are all free and can be downloaded online for free, and it's 100% legal. So there are hundreds of games out there that you can play around with. Pico 8's Explore function isn't free though. You need to buy Pico 8, but it's a one-time, lifetime purchase of $15, no subscription. You buy it and you own it forever, and you can even use it to develop games. Since the Pocket Pixel is Linux-based, that means Pico 8 plays natively, so it's not even being emulated. That means all the games run pretty great. If you want some game recommendations, check out this video on the end card. I recommend a lot of great Pico 8 games on there. PS1 does run great on the Pocket Pixel, but it lacks analog sticks in L2 and R2. While you can live without analog sticks on PS1, you kind of need extra shoulder buttons, so you'll have to work out some sort of hotkey system for those. But another issue is that the screen is locked to 1:1 ratio for some reason on the newer update, so it's super stretched and the video and scaling settings aren't working. But that's fine, you're not going to use this thing for PS1. But if you wanted to, I figured out how to fix it. You have to disable RGA scaling, and then the problem is that it won't save for some reason. It doesn't have an override active, so I don't know what's keeping it from saving, but I've disabled the override. I've tried saving it that way. That doesn't work. You need to create a new override with the RGA scaling setting off, and then save that as a new override and set that as the default override. And that's really annoying, because you're going to have to do that for every system that has this stretching issue. And out of the ones that I tried, there's been 3 that I tried, and there's going to be more, probably. Like, I'm sure Game Boy Advance will do it too, but it's annoying. It's just something that shouldn't exist, because it doesn't exist in previous versions of the firmware. But those screen dimension issues are consistent across multiple platforms. SNES had this issue. Silver lining is that it passes the Yoshi Island test though, so full compatibility on SNES. Although when you resume it from sleep, it does run at a lower frame rate sometimes. I don't know why it does that, but I've found it stuttering when I got back to it. It comes with PPSSPP on it, which is a PSP emulator, which is certainly a choice, but I want to get your hopes up. It runs poorly. Ratchet & Clank Size Matters is a terrible game, but it's great for testing. It originally capped at 30 FPS, and on the Pocket Pixel, you'll be getting 14 FPS. And if it was playable, this game runs at 16:9, which means it will be very small, and this is probably the smallest you'll ever see it. While the Pocket Pixel is capable of playing PS1 and below, you're only going to be using this to play the below part, but that's fine. There are a billion devices that are better for PS1. This handheld is a dedicated device. It is not an all-rounder. As I mentioned, the 1:1 screen means GB, GVC, and Pico 8 look best. It will also do SNES and NES at their internal 8:7 resolutions very well, but not many people like this. Everything else is going to be 4:3 or 3:2 and have letterboxing. But the width of the screen isn't much less than a GBA SP, and it has a better backlight. GBA and other Pixel systems will also look just fine. It has a D-pad that sucks, but it's silent. Since Russ probably won't cover the Pocket Pixel, I'm stealing his Contra test, and it 100% fails that Contra test. You can easily get false diagonals. I was experiencing accidental diagonals throughout all of my testing. This can be really frustrating for a lot of games because you're putting in false inputs, and that can lead to unfair deaths in a game, or worse, having to double back in an RPG and getting an extra encounter or two when you don't want it. There are ways to fix this issue by opening up the device and putting electrical tape over the D-pad in an X shape, covering up some of the contacts, but that's extra work that most won't think of or even bother trying or even know is something that they can do. You shouldn't expect a customer to open up the hardware ever, but especially not on day one. The backseat buttons are just fine. No real issues other than they're a little bit clacky. They're kinda loud. Select and start are perfect. They feel very close to the GBC ones. Bumpers are clicky. We have a power switch and two wheels, one for volume and one for brightness, and that's awesome. I love that. I love the wheels. That's all we have for buttons though. No D-pad to analog switch and no menu or hotkey button, and the D-pad is atrocious. Hotkeys are all software hotkeys, so your classic RetroArch select plus whatever to do stuff. As far as I know, there aren't any system-based hotkeys because it didn't come with a manual and doesn't have a manual on their sales page. We'll get into that mess later. We also have USB-C charging. It's 5-volt mono speaker, single boot micro SD, Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, comes with a bad SD card, so I would have preferred a no SD card version. No games on it, which is fine. It's how I prefer it, and a headphone jack. It's a very no-frills device, and I like it for that. This is what I wanted the RG Nano to do. The RG Nano could do PS1 and all that, and it tried a little too hard to make it work, when it would have been better had they just pretended that that option didn't exist, because people aren't really using it for that. It has a pretty big screen at 3.1 inches and 720p. It's not the biggest one on the market. I'm pretty sure the Cube XX is, but it's still much larger than the 2.3 inches on a Game Boy Color. Bonus features are very easy Pico 8 setup. Just drag and drop the Raspberry Pi version into the Pico 8 files into the Pico 8 ROMs folder, then launch Pico 8 from the Tools menu. You'll land right into Explorer. It's super convenient, but it works the same on pretty much every Linux device. The OS is like Emulation Station, so you're very familiar with it already if you've used Retrobat, Batocera, or Nully. It has a dedicated Retro Achievements game section if you don't know what to pick next. The battery lasts 8.5 hours while playing GBC, less for Game Boy Advance probably. The shoulder button shelf is higher up, so it's more comfortable of a grip for heavy shoulder use. Something I didn't like about the Shoe 20, the build quality is pretty decent, at least on par with older Ambernic handhelds like the RG35XX. The bezels are pretty small. Lastly, 26-second boot time, which is about on par with Nully. Aesthetically speaking, it's very nice too. I really like how it looks. It's very much just a Game Boy, and the transparent shells are all very dark, rich, and saturated with color. The blue, green, and red shells are all super vibrant. The purple could use some work, but the rest are good. To the average person, they'd easily confuse it for an actual Game Boy Color. To a retro gamer, they might think it's a modded GBC or a Game Boy Pocket, but it's still kind of hard to spot as a retro emulation handheld even for those in the know. If I didn't know any better, you could tell me it was a modded Game Boy Color and the only thing giving it away would be the lack of a cartridge slot. The shell has a bit of a quirk because it's also curved at the top and bottom of the shell, but that's on purpose. It has a low profile, mostly flat, and it's a little shorter and skinnier than a real GBC. I already considered the GBC to be pocket friendly, so this is even more so. As for its size, it's between the brick and the analog pocket. Its width is perfect and can be played one-handed. The only really odd part of the aesthetic is these blank patches on the back where it looks like there were product labels there at some point. So it definitely has this we had shells left over and made this kind of vibe. I think even more so of that when we get into the packaging later. But now for that packaging issue. So, some issues with it. When it arrived at my home and I opened it up, it was just a hard case in a box. I thought my wife must have ordered just the case by accident. I opened it up and the handheld was in there. I thought it was secondhand, like a used one or something like that, so I checked the site and it says it comes with the hard case, but no mention of a box. This isn't a big deal, but it seems a little unprofessional to me. It feels like I ordered it from a dude on eBay or Craigslist, not from a company selling me a product. It's fine, but as a YouTuber, I'm trying to show your product to people and help them decide if they want to buy your product or not. Hard to do that when you don't give me the opportunity to do an unboxing experience. I will say though, the case doesn't reek of poison and chemicals like the Ioneo Pocket Air Minis case did. It's actually pretty awful, so sorry, I'm trying not to die. Apparently the case makes you sick, it has chemicals. I've heard a lot of people say that. Really? It just smells really heavily of chemicals. God, that actually reeks. Oh my god, did they put like crazy purple knockout gas in it? Did I just get anthraxed? Oh my god, that is terrible. You know what? No, that one smells like an import shop. Like when you walk into like an incense shop and you smell like, oh my god, why does all of this smell bad? So maybe that's an advertising point. Doesn't smell like death. Retro Pocket Pixel. Pretty good tagline, I think. Maybe you can put that on the box if you ever print one. But having a product box looks good on camera. It gives me something to talk about on camera and highlight the good features of your product. That you don't have a box tells me you don't give a shit about how your product is portrayed. Even R36S clones have boxes. I don't know, dude. It's just hard to take you seriously when you don't take yourself seriously. The other issue is that it includes a charger that isn't just a normal 3 to 4 foot USB charging cable. Instead, we have this gimmicky emergency charger that you picked up at the gas station because they only let you use the toilet if you're a customer, but you had to shit so bad you couldn't go looking for the cheapest thing, so you reached for this wacky bitch in the bucket at the counter instead of going and getting a Snickers bar. Anyway, it looks like a lanyard, but it really is just a USB-C to C cable. Don't get excited though, it's a 5-volt charger, which is even weirder. I didn't even know they made C to C cables that are only 5 volt. It's also the shortest charging cable I've ever seen. If this was my only charging cable, I would have to put my device on the floor to charge it. I don't know, this is just like, the whole thing is just so unserious. Like, funny playing, do you really even care about the product? The bad D-pad, the boxing issue, the cord issue, it just seems like you just slapped this junk together out of stuff you had lying around. The lack of a box also creates some other issues, like there isn't an included manual or even a sheet with the system hotkeys, so I just have to assume that there aren't any. I couldn't find a copy of the manual on the site, but aside from that, the out-of-the-box experience is what you'd expect from a Linux handheld. Open it up, turn it on, see that the OS is out of date, it's a blank white OS with folders. Minimalism is one thing, but this is ridiculous. Check the card, it's an unlabeled poopy SD. Would prefer it didn't come with one if they were going to give me a card that will break in a month or two. I was ready for this though. I already flashed an SD card in advance with the newer OS, popped it in, come set up, put some games on it, and got to testing. So who is this for? I would personally say, just based off the D-pad, no one. But I guess I do have to say it's for some sort of people. So I recommend it for 4 kinds of people. If you want to play Pico 8 and you think it should be on a vertical handheld, then this is an option. It's a choice. Maybe you're someone who wants to keep it simple, you want a Game Boy Color again, and you want to do Game Boy Color things, and for cheap, being playable one-handed would be nice for Pokemon, being pocketable is a must, and cool colors make it all the better. Well, this is all of that, and the cheapest one available, and is very competitive in terms of dedicated Game Boy emulator handhelds. It is very pocketable. I put it in my pockets, and you honestly, if you looked at it, it would look like you had your phone with your wallet on top of your phone in your pocket. So it's a very not noticeable pocket bulge. Next would be the weirdo who likes WonderSwan. Even weirder, it's one of the systems that isn't stretching. I blame that entirely on them not knowing about the WonderSwan, so it just didn't have anyone mess with it. The Pocket Pixel has the same screen width as the WonderSwan Classic, and it's the same height. WonderSwan fans know this, but the WonderSwan was played horizontally for some games and vertical for others. So while the letterboxing is big on this 14:9 screen, it's the same dimensions vertically. On systems that aren't 1-1, your vertical gameplay would be shrunk. 1-1s are a secret perfect fit for this console you never heard of, nor do you care about, but it's awesome. Love 1-1s for WonderSwan because I'm a fuzzy little freak. Last person would be, as a gift, if you were like really sadistic, or you just think that they don't know what a good D-pad feels like, or you just want to give someone a bad experience. Preload it with Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Pico 8. I would just, I guess don't update it, and then you have to deal with fixing that person's card and set up in the future. So I guess you do have to go in and fix every single thing. So it really isn't even good as a gift because you're giving yourself a lot of work that you wouldn't normally have to do for anything else. I think you're just better off giving people our G35XXs. It's around the same price. As a bonus, it does stay cheap though, because you can fit every Pixel system on a single 32GB SD card. These are the cheapest cards available. The on-brand I use is a 2-pack for $5. The only cheaper handheld than this would be the Shu 20 V32, and while that is very beginner friendly, I think aesthetically and how it feels to play is better on the Retro Pocket Pixel. But the Shu 20 is Android based, so it has a way better sleep function. Recommendation time. If you want a 1/1 screen handheld that's much better than this, but don't care if it's horizontal or vertical, then the obvious recommendation is the RG Cube XX. Everyone who gets this thing loves it. It's not pocketable, but it is very ergonomic. It has all of the shoulders and sticks and has a floating disc D-pad. Pretty much every retro handheld person that you talk to has this handheld. You might not like these D-pads, but this is a very good one. I changed my mind about disc D-pads because this one, it's good. Bigger screen, it's a 4-inch screen compared to the 3-inch screen, and sometimes we all need an extra inch. It has everything the Pocket Pixel doesn't, including quiet buttons and PSP emulation, but it'll be about $80 tax included. But you can get it on Amazon for $85 with Prime, and you will actually get it in 2 days. If you want something that looks like a Game Boy but is better suited for 4.3 games, then you should check out Anbernics 35XX handhelds. But for the most part, all of these are going to be more expensive. If you want better sleep and resume, cheaper, and don't mind it being a little bit more cramped, again, check out the Shu 20 V32. I have reviews for all these handhelds on the end card. Do I recommend you get one? Well, despite coming from China, it didn't take 2 full weeks to arrive, so that's a plus, and it wasn't 4PX as the shipper, so that's not too bad of a wait either. After fixing the RGA scaling and settings save issue, it became a decent all-rounder. Just wish Funny Playing included a better cord, a box, a manual, a better D-pad, and didn't have the stretch screen issue built into their current build. If you didn't have this video, you wouldn't know about this issue or have any idea how to fix it, so I definitely don't recommend it for someone who hasn't seen this video. The D-pad is especially heinous. I have never used a D-pad this bad. It's a shame because without these issues, I would have recommended it as one of the best budget handhelds that you can get, then as the cheapest 1/1 vertical and the best one. Unfortunately, the D-pad is just that bad. It ruins the whole thing for me, honestly. I don't find it playable. Bummer that this one sucks as much as it does, because we could have had another really good 1/1 handheld, and I wanted to be able to recommend it so bad. But yeah, that's how it is. That's all for this one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tip your Overlord. I take likes, subs, and piles of Game Boys that Game Boy so I can Game Boy while I Game Boy. Also members, because they help me get neat stuff like this so that I can tell you whether it's worthwhile. And for just $1, you get an emote next to your name and your name in the credits read aloud, like Dragon Fanatic, Willie Pete, Linky, and Astro Pixie YT. I'll see you all later. Bye!